All right, here we go. Let's get them started. Let's see here. All right. WHGE 95.3 FM. Coming up, the Open Eye. All right.
Those of us that indulge in or commit intellectual violence don't do so for the pleasure of mental masturbation or ego diddling. We do so because the chains of oppression on people's minds are deep and difficult to remove.
Good morning, my children of the sun. Welcome to the Open Eye on WHGE 95.3 FM. I'm your host, Patrice Gibbs, your third eye optometrist, ready to get them started. Yes, indeed, and I'm not going to waste any time. Hey, happy Black History Month. That's right, it's still Black History Month. In spite of racist attempt to shut it down. That's right. They do not want you to talk about Black history. Does it? We'll get to some of this stuff. Well, I know how the non-melanated people feel, and because they've expressed it, and some of them have asked. So, if it's not racist to have a Black History Month, why can't we have a White History Month? So I decided the racists are right. We should have a White History Month. And here's some white history that I think should be covered in White History Month. Let's start right here. In 1862, America's largest mass hanging of 38 Native Americans. White History Month. In 1923, a woman was assaulted by her own lover. Rather than blame her lover, thereby angering her husband for her injuries, she said it was a black man. That's a big part of white history right there. Rumors swirled that the black man raped her. So a mob of white men marched into Rosewood, destroying homes, killing pets, and murdering at least 6 black people. That number is low, and 2 white. The official record and eyewitness testimony do not agree on the numbers of deaths, of course not. Witnesses claim the number to be much higher, including children. It lasted 6 days, and no one was ever charged with any crime. White History Month. May 31st of 1921, white Americans completely obliterated a black community. White mobs with members of the KKK and government forces. And let's face facts, tons of government officials were and are members of the KKK. They invaded the community, destroying homes, businesses, murdering hundreds of blacks, displacing roughly 10,000 more that were left completely homeless. And using an old bomber from World War I, they bombed the community. Y'all know where I'm talking about? If you study White History Month, you probably don't. That's all right. Talking about Tulsa. And unfortunately, these cases are not unique. There are plenty of communities destroyed by white people. In 1932, the Tuskegee Institute, in concert with the government, experimented on hundreds of black men without telling them what they were doing. It lasted 40 years. By the end of the experiment, 28 of the men had died directly of syphilis. 100 were dead of related complications. 40 of their wives had been affected, and 19 of their children had been born with congenital syphilis. Now, they didn't give them syphilis. They found these men that were diagnosed with syphilis, and they didn't treat them, or they faked them out of getting treated so they could study the effects of syphilis. 40 years they did that. White History Month. Forced sterilization among people of color by white people was extremely commonplace. Although not exclusive to only people of color, it was clearly predominant. Not just forced, but quite often the person being sterilized had no idea what had been done to them. The government of North Carolina alone is responsible for over 7,000 cases between 1929 and 1974. California sterilized over 20,000 people. It's called eugenics, y'all. White History Month. Yeah. So let's have a White History Month. Let's go over all the real history of America. I can go on and on with more and more. Want something more recent? 1985. Philadelphia police bombed the row house of a radical group of black activists. A fire that killed 11 people inside, including 5 children. Any more recent than that, and I think we leave the realm of American history and enter the realm of current events. But there's more, and more to choose from. I'm sure many of my Facebook friends and social media associates know of a case after case of American atrocities conducted by white people, mass lynchings, bombed churches, the list goes on and on. So the next time a white person says, why is there a Black History Month and not a White History Month? Rather than point out the obvious that the remaining 11 months are all White History Months, let's agree with them. Let's point out the white history that's not taught in schools. This is why people, the mayonnaise brigade mainly, don't understand what's going on now. To a lot of society, it's just 3 parts: slavery, civil rights era, and now. No, there was a lot of stuff that went on in the past 2 centuries. Case after case, murder after murder. Then later, they act as though none of these incidents would have had any lingering effects on their families, on their abilities to educate, feed, and clothe themselves, forgetting that generational poverty is hard enough to get out of just by working hard and relying on never getting a physical ailment. But add to it systemic oppression, the slaughtering of thousands of innocent people, then blaming them for their inability to get ahead in a rigged system. That's willful ignorance. That's all taking part of the racist system. When we see black people getting assaulted by a police officer for something silly like not putting out their cigarette, Sandra Bland, or disrespecting them, we don't see it as a unique thing. We see it as a continuation of what's been going on for hundreds of years to the black community by those with any amount of power. It's a trend. Black people have been telling us about it for years. Only now with cell phones everywhere, we are finally catching a lot of it on video, and we're far too slowly learning these isolated cases aren't isolated when we learn white history. WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye. Let me get my disclaimer in.
The views and opinions expressed on the Open Eye are those of the hosts, guests, and contributors, and do not reflect the policy or position of WHGE 95.3 FM, nor our sponsor, the Delaware Center for Homeless Vets. Any content provided by Open Eyes hosts, guests, or contributors are theirs and are not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, company, or individual.
WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye. Hey, 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 what's up, Jardé? I see you, brother. All right, all right. Let me see. The other day, I was having a discussion with a friend of mine, and it was actually through email. I sent him a video of Billie Holiday. Oh, what's the name of the song? Jeez Louise, I can't believe. Slow and Mellow? I don't know. If you're out there listening, Steve, help me out there. Hey, Sherry, I see you, sister. My Facebook cousin, friend. And I see you on there, Queen. Hey, Tracy. All right. I think it was Slow and Mellow is the name of the song. It's, it's really just a fire recording, and it's on video. So if you get a chance, look up Billie Holiday, Fine and Mellow. Is that what I said? Fine and Mellow. At any rate, one of the musicians included on that was the great Lester Young, who, of course, was Billie Holiday's best friend and mentor and what have you. And one of the things that came out of that discussion was the effect that Lester Young had on society beyond the music. Okay? For those of you that aren't jazz fans and may not know, Wilmington has a very important jazz history. Lester Young played here very often. He was a regular patron of the Knotty Pine restaurant, where they always kept his favorite dish, llama beans, on deck, because that was a Lester Young, that's what he loved. That was his favorite dish. Like I said, the thing that came out of it was Lester Young's effect on society. One of the big effects that Mr. Young, seminal saxophonist, had on society was our language. Rumor has it that Lester Young popularized the term cool to mean fashionable or hip. Oh yeah, you cool. I mean, he's a real hip talker. Lester Young, when he was offered a music gig, he would say, "What the bread smell like?" That means how much money is it paying? Okay. And of course, other jazz artists and artists in general, especially from our community, from the melanated community, have had an effect on our society that has been quite profound. Now, anybody that listens to the Open Eye or knows me, hold on for a second. Hey, Steve, that knows me, knows that I am a major Louis Armstrong fan. All right. I always claim Dizzy Gillespie is my all-time favorite artist. I think that was my introduction to jazz when I was about 10 years old. And I've loved him ever since. And Louis Armstrong, his enduring legacy. Okay. I'm guessing when most people hear Louis Armstrong's name, they think of a lovable old guy with a gravelly voice singing "Hello, Dolly" and "What Wonderful World." But there's much more to his legacy than that. Oh, so much more. Armstrong, of course, is the most important American musical figure of the 20th century. His influence is incalculable and extends beyond nearly, a century of jazz, to include everyone from Leonard Bernstein to the Rolling Stones. Music would sound much different today if there had been no Louis Armstrong. The man known as Satchmo and Pops made the soloists the focus of jazz and turned the music into an art. He developed the rhythmic language of swing and made it the foundation of jazz and popular music. He inspired a new approach to singing. The immense impact that Armstrong had on not just American music, but also music around the world is even more astounding considering his origins. He was born into devastating poverty in New Orleans on August 4th, 1901. He always claimed he was born July 4th, but that's all right. And he grew up in a really rough neighborhood surrounded by violence and vice. But it was also a neighborhood filled with natural sounds of blues and jazz. It's unknown when he first picked up the cornet, but he was 11 years old when he had the first opportunity to study music. And a fortunate quirk of fate, he was arrested after shooting his stepfather's pistol in the air on New Year's Eve and sent to the Colored Ways of Home for Boys, where he received formal lessons, learned how to sight read, and quickly became a star in the marching band. Now, as I said, Louis Armstrong's influence and effect on our society exceeded the music. Okay? Let me tell you about jazz, social justice, and a white boy from Texas. It happened on October 12, 1931. A 16-year-old white boy from Austin High School in Texas bought a ticket to see Louis Armstrong, King of the Trumpet, and his orchestra at the Driscoll Hotel. He knew nothing about jazz or this king, he recalled many years later. Looking for fun, he attended because he thought girls would be at the dance. When what he ended up seeing astonished him. Steam whistle power, lyric grace, alternated at will, even blended, he recalled. Louis played mostly with his eyes closed. Just before he closed them, they were seen to have ceased to look outward, to turn inward to the world of which the music was to flow. Armstrong was 31 years old at that time. He had already changed the world of American music with his Hot Fives and Hot Sevens recordings. Okay, a few weeks after this concert, Armstrong would record versions of Stardust that was so stunning, vocally different from the original Hoagy Carmichael that calling it avant-garde wouldn't be a stretch. Pops was at the peak of his creative power at that time. The young man named Charles was a freshman at Austin High studying Greek classics. He had cordial relations with American Negroes, and like most of them he knew, especially an elder named Buck Green, who was born and raised a slave. When Charles was 10 years old, Mr. Green at 75 taught him how to play harmonica. So he had a love for music. But nothing prepared Charles for the gift of Louis Armstrong. Charles Black said, he was the first genius I had ever seen. The moment of first being and knowing oneself to be in the presence of genius is a solemn moment. It is perhaps the moment of final and indelible perception of man's utter transcendence of all else created. It is impossible to overstate the significance of a 16-year-old Southern white boy seeing genius for the first time in a black man. This affected him so deeply that Charles Black grew up to be one of the leading attorneys in the Brown versus Board of Education, Brown versus Board of Education case. And it was the effect that Louis Armstrong had on him that made him the man that he became and made him view the African community. Because he said, if black people are as bad as I've been taught, then what is this man's place who transcended his music and was obviously a genius? Obviously a genius. And this affected him for the rest of his life. And he became one of the leading advocates for the rights of black people. That's the white boy from Texas. That's the effect of Louis Armstrong. WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye, coming back with my partner in consciousness, Nsoromma. All right. What's up, brother? Chop. How you doing?
Yaga, brat, wagwan. Hey, yo, good morning. Yo, Ford, us. Hey, Steve, Tracy. Hey, yo, Shag. Hey, yo, Nunu. What's good? Hey, Cindy. Hi, Mom. Oh, alright. You alright? Alright. Thumbs up me. Thumbs up me. Alright? Open Eye Radio Show, WHGE 95.3 FM. You dig? Yo, Mr. Gibbs, Nsoromma in the building. Tune in, get some wisdom. You know what I'm saying?
WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye. Yes, indeed, joined on the air. My partner in consciousness, my good friend, my brother. All right. Nsoromma, how you doing, brother?
Good, bro, good.
All right,
What's up, girl?
All right. Hey,
yo,
have you seen the sequel to the Black Panthers? To the Black Panther?
The
Black
sequel?
Panthers.
Nah.
Wakanda Forever.
I don't know. Which one? With the sister?
Yeah.
The sister took over and... Yeah, man.
Okay,
they always change the story narrative.
Oh, yeah. You know, well, spoiler alert for those of you that haven't seen it.
Oh, okay.
Okay, because this was something that, there was a scene in there that, well, put it like there's a plot point in Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, that has sparked outrage and criticism for its depiction of rogue French militia. All right. In the film, there's a scene that depicts a group of bound French troops as they're escorted by Wakanda's Dora Milaje warriors to Queen Ramonda as she meets with world leaders inside the United Nations in Geneva, Switzerland. The men were being held accountable for an attempt to steal the futuristic empire's prized natural resource, vibranium.
Right.
From an outpost in the West African country of Mali. All right. Now, the French saw this scene, and boy, they got all bent out of shape. Sebastien Lecornu, France's Minister of Armed Forces, slammed the fictional plot.
What?
Oh, yeah. In February 12th tweet, he wrote, "I strongly condemn this misleading representation of our armed forces. I think it paid tribute to the 58 French soldiers who died defending Mali at its request against Islamic terrorist groups." And Mali has long ties to France dating back to the late 1800s.
Wow.
When the African country was colonized. All right. In the movie scene, what happened was these rogue French militia tried to steal vibranium. And the Dora Milaje of Wakanda kicked their ass. They didn't kill them. They brought them to Geneva and presented them to the French ambassador, whoever it was, you know, and said, "Look, we caught you. We caught you trying to come into our country and steal from us." Now, the French government, like I said, they got all bent out of shape as if they were some decent colonizers. Okay? Let me tell you something. France was one of the worst colonizers on the African continent. Just to give you an idea, I got this from Brother Levert the Baseman, and he describes the French. Right? For the French, it was cheaper to kill an enslaved African and wait for a new shipment to arrive than improve their living conditions. And over the course of 100 years, from 1680s to 1780s, over 1 million Africans were killed. They were killed over 1 million people in the course of 100 years. 1 million people in 100 years. Now remember, slavery started in Haiti in 1492. And at that time, Columbus and them killed over 8 million indigenous people. The death rate in Saint Dominique was ridiculous. In just 100 years, slavery killed 1 million people, and thousands more were killed by suicide because they knew death was better than enslavement. And women newly arrived, African women, committed suicide at a higher rate than anybody else. Not only were they forced to work in the fields, but they were also subjected to rape. Their bodies were no longer their own. They were reduced to little more than a substitute for some white man's hand. And those who were impregnated often didn't make it to full term. They either died during pregnancy, during birth, or they didn't deliver live births. My God, this is what the French did to African people. Okay? This just didn't happen in Haiti, but in every French colony around the world. That is their legacy. The legacy of the French. The pastries and desserts that people love so much are the result of the enslavement of African people. Don't be too quick to salute the colonizer's flag, because it's soaked with the blood of our people. The hell with them French people.
And you know, they trying to take their history out of school, so they,
Oh yeah,
you know, that's crazy. So people won't really know what we giving them on the open eye.
right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's crazy.
It is, man. And you know what? We're gonna deal with that too. You know, but I got a little more to say about the French.
Right.
All right, because the French, I'm telling you, my African brothers and sisters, if you hear me over there, all right, take a lesson from Thomas Sankara.
Thomas Sankara?
Yes. And kick them fools out. You know, and you know, it's something. Now, what's interesting is Italy, their prime minister, Meloni, she publicly called out France for shamelessly exploiting Africa. And she said the CFA is the colonial currency that France prints for 14 African nations to which it applies seigniorage. All right, seigniorage. What is seigniorage? Seigniorage is a profit made by a government when it issues currency. It is simply the difference in the value of the currency versus the cost of producing it. For example, if a central government bank produces a bill worth $10, it only costs $5 to make. There's a $5 seigniorage, all right? Imagine that multiplied by trillions of dollars. See, this is how the French are exploiting African nations.
That sounds like American banking system.
Somebody paying attention. Yeah, y'all paying attention? Yeah, that's what we're. And
wow.
You know, go ahead. What was you want to say?
I was saying, wow, for
Yeah.
you know,
Wagwan.
Yeah.
up on it.
Wagwan.
And by and I was talking about seigniorage, and by virtue of which it exploits the resources of these nations. Okay, this is a picture of a child who works in a gold mine in Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso is one of the poorest nations in the world. What happened to Thomas Sankara of Burkina Faso? He was murdered. He was assassinated by the French. Don't get that mixed. France prints colonial money for Burkina Faso, which has gold. They don't need their money. In return, they demand 50% of everything that Burkina Faso exports. That, you know, they sell out, right? And it ends up in the coffers of the French treasury. Let me tell you something about France, all right? Because there's like 14 countries that are still dealing with France in the neo-colonialism way, all right? If they don't profit from the resources of Africa, France will be a third world country, okay? It will be a crack country, which it basically already is. You ever been to France? I'll tell you what, I'm glad I wasn't there long. I was in the Air Force. You know, France is one of those countries where I don't think they use deodorant. You know, they're not regular bathers. You know, and man, it's not someplace.
What you saying? It's stinking France?
Ah, yeah, man. Paris is dirty as hell, and always has been.
With all the movies, they always make it seem like it's a clean. And,
Oh yeah, and it's real romantic, and yeah, you got people walking around. Yeah, and you got French people walking around digging and scratching with lice, and ain't bathing regularly.
Nah, man.
Oh yeah.
They don't show that on the news.
They damn sure don't. No, they ain't showing that on the news. That's word. They don't want you to know how dirty these people are over there. And you know what? We got some of them here under that influence.
Wow.
Yeah, I've seen some recording stars say, well, you know, I bathe when I have to. When do you have to? When you start smelling yourself? Because a fox can't smell his own hole. So, no. WHGE 95.3 FM. Open eye.
Yo, Jared, what's good? They had to ask permission to borrow money from France.
Yeah.
I mean, we still have to ask permission to borrow money from where we at. You know what I mean? It means we all in the same boat. It's the fact to me that they can come and kill our leaders and don't nothing happen about it. And we just go and pray, yo, and do protests. No, but it's not a reaction. We need to start reacting, man. Actions speak louder than words.
March, pray, protest. That's what Nsoromma was just. I said March, pray, protest.
Oh, man. Ain't that, we need to get some shirts like that.
Yeah. Yeah, buddy. You know.
Let's say stop that.
Yeah. Yeah, buddy, because we need to be proactive.
That's crazy, man.
You know, not just reactive. We got to be proactive. And, you know, turning this thing around. You know, let me tell you something. You just mentioned in school. The desegregation of schools has always been a cruel joke on African American students. After the 1954 Brown versus Board of Education rule, a few schools actually desegregated. Some school districts took as long as 20 years to make some semblance of racial adjustment. For instance,
20 years.
20 years. Wow. And you know, they're you know, determinedly drawing it back.
And they trying to get it. They doing it. It ain't determinedly. They bringing it back around. So
I mean, they were with great purpose.
Yeah.
Making it happen. You know, Boston in the 1970s and Delaware in the 1970s. Because Delaware didn't desegregate until 76, 77. Okay? These desegregation efforts were met with much white resentment, of course, hostility, and violence, because they're known for that. Ain't it something how the melanated mob has convinced the world that African Americans are violent people after we suffered all the violence in hell from these people?
I mean, that's like, well, ain't it psychology?
Oh, yeah.
That's psychology is a mug.
Oh, man,
You know what I'm saying?
That propaganda, boy, I tell you.
Yeah, media control, all of that plays a big part.
Yeah, that's what. And that violence in the 70s was as rough as the violence was in the 50s. Don't get it mixed. You know what? And African American leaders might have been. African American leaders were confused about the tactics to educate our children. They have confused, how many times have I told you? They have confused quality with whiteness. Whiteness does not mean it's quality. And they were fooled by the illusion of inclusion because the white schools were much better funded than the African American schools would be able to take advantage of the resources that the white students enjoy. So African American students were sent to white suburban schools where they were met by hostile white teachers and school administrations who made immense efforts to see that these students failed. Many of these efforts was actually successful, unfortunately. Here in Delaware, the dropout rate has been obscene. I hate calling it the dropout rate because what it actually is the push out rate. It's part of the school to prison pipeline.
Right.
Mm-hmm. For instance, one district in the city, and I know you've heard me talk about this before, for 2 years, suffered a 100% dropout rate. That means that not one student from that district graduated from high school in 2 years.
Wow.
In 2017, because of charter schools, private schools, special education, alternative schools, racial school boards, and state legislation, many schools are even more segregated than ever. You know what Nsoromma told you? Desegregation has proven to be an abject failure. African Americans made a major mistake attempting to desegregate the schools. Their efforts should have been focused on desegregating the resources. That's a quote from my mama.
Well, I never really understood that. They didn't send white people to the black people's school.
I know. No.
I didn't understand that.
Yeah.
That
You know? Well, of course, because the white schools were better funded and, and better repair, and they had air conditioning.
but they took us out of our environment.
Mm-hmm.
You understand?
Yep.
And didn't took us away from our environment and didn't send any kids to show the difference. You know, it was a thing that they did in school, whereas you can trade families or something, and you can go visit their family, and they had a kid, and y'all switch for a week. You know, that was a more rounded program than the segregation. You know what I'm saying? Because you get the chance to really see how they live, and you know
how the other side.
Yeah, how you really get to see that. And the segregation, they didn't do that.
Oh no,
they just said, "Okay, you black guys go, kids go."
And
out
you know
there.
what was crazy?
That,
you go to the classes at the DSEG, right? And you had one or two things going on. You had classes where it was majority white and a couple of blacks, or you had classes where it was majority black and a couple of whites. Okay. And I would tell you that when that took place, when it was majority whites, the teachers made sure to protect the feelings of their white students. Now, of course, they made no effort to protect the feelings of their black students. And the reason I'm talking about this is just an example of what went on, okay, or what has been going on in this hostile environment for the education of our children. Young Jasmine Spencer was sitting with friends eating lunch at Linwood Elementary School in Milwaukee, Oregon, when a teacher berated her with hateful remarks for their behavior. The teacher was like, "You're lucky I'm not making you pick cotton and clean my house and stuff like that." Are you kidding me? You told that child they lucky not they be picking cotton?
You know, my response and my answer to that is so hard that I can't even say it.
You know?
I can't even say my response to that.
I would have called them some names. Oh man, I would have invented some cuss words for them.
Now, how do you punish a person that
does something like that,
kills your child's dreams?
You know?
How?
Well, of course, the schools try to protect them from any accountability.
The school is the one that hired them, so I'm the one, the type that go all the way to the head. You brought them
crack
in
goes
here.
Downhill.
Right, you brought them in here.
They knew what they was about.
Conspiracy.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You know that in their resume
culture.
that they did this somewhere before, somewhere else.
Yeah.
This is not the first time. And you let this go by. So you're more responsible than them getting in there and actually injecting that into our kids.
Well, of course, Jasmine's mother was outraged, and she met with the principal after her daughter reported what happened.
Right.
When she got home from school. If she were to curse at the kids or yell at them, that's forgivable. Good word past that. I got cussed out by a couple of teachers. To say something about picking cotton and cleaning and painting houses, that's deeper than that.
Right. That's some
and it's
hate.
not something that just
that's racial hate.
Yes. And it's not, like you said, this ain't their first time on that road.
Exactly.
All right? And it wasn't something that just slipped out. They thought about that.
Now, if her older brother would have came to the building and did the dirt, who would have been wrong?
Business.
Right. But they the kind of responses that they need.
That's right.
And that's what I mean by you don't have to argue or nothing. You don't have to do none of that. You respond. If somebody hits you, you hit them back immediately.
Yeah.
Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, nose for a nose.
Well, the school board addressed the situation in a statement. They said, "We know and understand that the impact of words spoken can be hurtful for our students, and that was the case in this situation. I deeply regret this impact and will continue to work with our students and school community to make sure they are heard and feel supported. Our school and the school district are committed to an inclusive environment that honors each student's identity and provides safety, respect, and care in each of our spaces. And after the teacher was fired, the school updated their statement, and it read in part, "Dear families, our Linwood Elementary School community. I wanted to update you on the situation that occurred last week in our school community. We have concluded our investigation about the inappropriate racialized comments by a staff member to the students. The employee involved is no longer employed within the North Clackamas School District." Well, I guess that former teacher learned a valuable lesson.
She shouldn't be able to get in no more school districts.
That's word.
Like, she should be blackballed from schooling. Period.
You know? And see, here's the thing.
Because she can go around the corner and get another job at the other racist school.
That's
you know
exactly.
what I'm saying? And that's what I mean. That's their verbal spellage and spells that they be putting in them statement letters, which really, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's like so much.
Well, another teacher got fired, all right? And this was an Ohio teacher who's out of a job after an image was shown during a Black History Month segment featuring an orangutan eating a watermelon.
Come on, man. You are lying, man. You lying. Yo, stop, man. This is yo.
You know, and of course the community uproar led by angry parents and students pressured
another March protest.
They pressured the unnamed teacher at Bexley, you know, to submit his resignation.
Did he do it?
Oh yeah. The school force didn't, you know,
to get a job around on a.
Yeah, well, see, here's how that happened. We didn't want to do nothing to you. We know you're a racist asshole, but you got caught. Okay,
ain't my fault. You was being ignorant.
Right. You know,
should have done it.
This was planned.
He said you should have done it sneakier, Pat.
That's what. Yeah, you should have been sneakier with your racism. You know, like I said, you know, this was planned. It was thought out. It was premeditated, intentional, and deliberate. All right. Yeah, I'll tell you something. With what's going on in Black History Month. You know, it's like, okay, who's doing your thinking for you sometimes? That's what I want to ask. You know, who's doing what's that right there?
We had to go through a lot as a people to get a whole month.
Yeah.
They giving us a whole Black History Month.
Yes, that's deep. Well, let me tell you something. Like I said, you know, with Black History Month, we have these kind-hearted, melanated, mayonnaise brigade people.
I'm saying melanated.
Yeah, mayonnaise brigade people who come up with these great ideals to show that they salute Black history. For instance, they had a group of white people, all white, in dashikis, playing African drums and doing African dances. You ever seen a white person do an African dance?
I think that's disrespectful because if you have black people put on Ku Klux Klan robes,
right? You know, but even that's not a good comparison because you know we don't have. Well, see, the thing is when we do something, we always take it to another level. So if we see you do something, it makes me think of my father. You could tell my father a joke,
right?
All right. He'd come back the next day and tell you the same joke. And it would be a hell of a lot funnier than the joke that you told him. Okay? And this is how we do things, all right? But them, okay, it's like, you ever seen Pat Boone sing Little Richard songs?
Nah.
Oh, man, it'll make you cringe like, ooh, damn, who told you that I could do that? Go do that. You know? Yeah. You know? And that's what... This group of white people,
right,
in dashikis, playing drums and doing African dances with their big stinky feet out.
Come on.
All right. You know, I don't mean to sound racist, but damn. You know. See, here's what happened. They thought this up and said, oh yeah, that'll show that we really support and commemorate Black people and their African heritage. The first time I saw it done They did it in honor of Dr. King. Excuse me, Dr. King was from Georgia. He was not from Ghana. What the hell an African drum got to do with Dr. King? See, here's the thing. When they came up with these ideals, they didn't invite any black people in to advise them. All right? Because you ever get ready to do something around some black people and they say, hey, don't do that. All right? So they didn't have any black people to advise them not to do this cringeworthy crap.
Right.
That was nothing but embarrassing and just look crazy as hell.
Wow.
Don't do that. All right? Don't do that. And don't get it wrong. Don't get it mixed. All right? I know to some people it sounds like, well, white people can't dance. Yeah, I seen some white people that could cut a rug. What's my man's name from third
white
base?
People that can do everything that black people can do.
What's my man's name from third base? MC Search.
Oh, Search? Yeah.
That's a dancing ass white boy if I've ever seen one.
At least he was back then.
Yeah, he was back then because he's fat and old now. But he could cut a rug.
Right.
That's where the dude could cut a rug. You know? So there's some. Look, now, just because Search could dance, that don't mean everybody from over in the mayonnaise community can dance.
Nah, but Search gave him a pass to try.
And he gave him a pass to try, you know. And it's like Kenny G, all right? Anybody that knows me and knows how I feel about jazz, know I despise Kenny G. I don't think he's playing jazz. He's playing pop instrumentals that aren't even very interesting. Kenny G is to jazz what Pat Boone was to rock and roll and R&B.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Cringe.
You stupid.
That's word. Now, the difference, and I'll name some white dudes that would not make you cringe. Jerry Mulligan, who played the baritone sax. All right, he's a white guy. All right, he was a protege, or at least he was very much influenced by the great Lester Young. All right, you could not put him in the same room with Kenny G, and I think he might be Kenny G if he did run upon him playing sax. All right, so you know,
you don't think everybody have one in them?
Kenny G
didn't have one.
Not one. I don't give a damn how many songs that fool selling. He ain't no jazz artist. He sucks. That's where.
That's crazy.
Yes, it is. WHGE 95.3 FM. The hell with Kenny G.
Yo, John, Keith, what's up? Yo, Raga, Wagwan boy. Yo, you know what it is, suspect. He always go all the way in, to the end, and then back out of it, yo. Mesmero. Steve.
Mesro?
Yeah, Mesro.
Oh, yeah. He's a Caucasian jazz artist.
Mesro is the Caucasian.
That was hit. But don't forget what Mesro did, Steve.
What Mesro do, Steve?
Mesro had the weed.
Oh,
Yeah. Mesro had the weed. I know that.
Oh, okay. Oh, so he can play a little bit.
Yeah, he could. Yeah, that's what it is. You know, he was accepted by our community.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you could come to the cookout. That's what it is.
Wow.
I'm Patrice Gibbs.
I'm Nsoromma.
On WHGE 95.3, this is
The Open Eye Radio Show.
Since 2001, the U.S. has spent $32 million an hour.
Back that up.
$32 million per hour.
What?
Not on health care, not on education, not on infrastructure. $32 million per hour to kill people.
Wow.
Yeah. On the other side of the planet, and Americans still believe people hate them for their freedom. That's the biggest crock ever heard. Let me tell you something.
$32 million an hour.
Yeah. And people living in the street here.
To murder.
Yeah. That's where, see, America actually was never great. Okay, when people say, let's make America great again, what period of American history are you talking about? Are you talking about when America was a British colony with unfair taxes? Wasn't great then. Are you talking about when America burnt women at the stake because Americans thought they were witches? That's how crazy these people were. Are you talking about when America enslaved Africans? Wasn't great then. Are you talking about when women and minorities couldn't vote? Or when America ignored the Holocaust? Oh, yeah. Or when America dropped two atomic bombs on Japan. Or when America sent thousands of our men to Vietnam to fight and die under false pretenses and put black men mostly on the front line in Vietnam. Let us not forget that. All right? I give a tribute and grab my heart for my cousin Dennis Joins, who died in Vietnam.
Bless him.
Yes, indeed. Or when we did the same thing, or when America, I hate saying we, because I ain't French, all right? Or when America did the same in Iraq, or it's still doing today. So what kind of America do you foresee returning to when you say, let's make America great again?
You left out the main one. The move people bombing right here home.
Oh, yeah.
They blew up.
Well, actually, I had mentioned that earlier.
People up.
Yeah. Oh, I had mentioned that earlier, actually, just before you came in.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. And you know what? Almost half of U.S. families can't afford basics like rent and food. Okay? This is America, the greatest country in the world. Well, I tell y'all last week about the American dream. All right? Dr. King said his dream turned into a nightmare. Because that's what it is. It's a nightmare for too many people. The economy may seem like it's chugging right along. But too many Americans are struggling to afford a basic middle-class life. Nearly 51 million households don't earn enough to afford a monthly budget that includes housing, food, childcare, healthcare, transportation, and a cell phone. This figure includes 16.1 million households living in poverty. All right? Most of us are a paycheck away from poverty. And despite seemingly, positive economic signs, all right, data shows that the financial hardship is still a pervasive problem for way too many people. Many of these folks are the nation's child care workers, health home aides, office assistants, store clerks, who work on low-paying jobs and don't have much savings. The study also drilled down to the county level. It's not just in the state, it's in counties, in cities, in neighborhoods, all right, where people are struggling just to survive. Who the hell wants to just survive? I want to live. I don't want my day filled with worrying where my next meal is coming from. And if you've never been there, don't tell me a damn thing. That's word. Oh, yeah. Luckily we had time between shows here because there's some other things we need to get to before we get out of here in Nsoromma.
Right.
All right. And this is one that just blew my mind. This is how evil, that's the only word, and perfidious these people are. All right. This happened in a Kentucky restaurant.
Okay.
The diners there were caught off guard as a group of GOP women, meaning Republican women, all right, aired footage relating to Breonna Taylor's death in Kentucky. The patrons unaffiliated with the event held by the Republicans Women's Club of South Central Kentucky heard and saw graphic descriptions of the incident that killed Breonna Taylor. Of course, Breonna Taylor was shot and murdered by police officers using a no-knock warrant to conduct a raid on her home. Now, diners at the Greek restaurant in Bowling Green on this night were subjected to police body camera footage from the night Breonna Taylor was shot and killed. Now, why were they showing this footage in the restaurant? The Republican Women's Club of South Central Kentucky, who got kicked out of one Purdue. All right. What they were doing was the Louisville police officer turned conservative author and pundit John Mattingly, who was involved in the murder. What they said was, well, he has a right to tell his side of the story, so we're holding this event to commemorate him. This is how sick these people are. They are celebrating the murder of Breonna Taylor, and they brought her murderer in to speak to their group and tell his side of the story. I don't want to hear the side of your story, you
Wow.
murderous bastard. I don't want to hear your side of the story. They should have ran them up out of that restaurant. That's what they should have did, like they did in the first restaurant they tried to go to and do this crap. And of course, the media called the restaurant to get a comment. Well, they're not answering their phone and what have you, because they were part of that and they
Right. The
enjoyed it.
restaurant said, come do it here. Why not do it here?
Why not do it right here?
Sally.
Yeah. You know?
What?
That's right. But, and of course, that made the black people that were at that restaurant very uncomfortable. All right? But they could care less about our discomfort. But let me tell you about white discomfort. White people have been raised to believe that police are always the good guys and the Black Lives Matter less than white comfort. You ever, look, I remember primetime TV in the 70s, there were a lot of cop shows on. And the cops were always viewed as heroes, even if they did something that was a little, unlawful and what have you. But on these TV shows, this was the cops were always showed as heroes and what have you. All right? Of course, this has nothing to do with reality. Because when a white person calls the cops over black people barbecuing in the park, sleeping in a common room at Yale, or sitting in a Starbucks, knowing that Tamir Rice's life was snuffed because someone called the cops on a 12-year-old child for playing with a toy gun in the park. Something that white boys do all across this country without fear of being shot. And that's a national story. You can't say you didn't know what happened. When the cops are called on John Crawford in a Walmart for holding an air gun in a store where they sell the goddamn gun. And the cops ran in there and snuffed him.
But that's their job, man.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was looking at a thing yesterday, and it's terrible. It was like a prosecutor or something talking to the committee of judges or the panel, right? And he was like, what do you think is best? Would you rather us cripple them so they can be on our insurance and we be paying them for life, or just kill them? And guess what they said?
Just kill them.
And that's where the problem lies.
Yeah.
It's putting these people in positions, and that's how they think about you. You know what I'm saying? They're the ones that need to be held accountable. Because it starts at the top.
That's right.
And then it trickles down into the law enforcement. They not doing nothing that they can do.
Yeah.
Because
and you
they
know what?
already
Now,
have
I
permission
just saw...
to do that. So if I got the okay from you to go ahead and cut this guy head off, if I have a problem anywhere, you can just go out there, you can do what you want, Frank. You can cut their head off if you need to.
And see, I seen this guy on talking about, well, what we need to do is, we need to put more money in the training. No, we don't. No, we don't, because they don't have to be trained not to murder white people.
Right.
All right? And when you know these things happen, and you call the cops on black people for mundane, everyday living, what you are saying is, my white discomfort with you and your blackness is more important than the fact that you could be snuffed out in a few minutes.
But you calling me on some insecurities that you have from you murdering and killing us.
Right.
We never hung you. We never dragged you.
No.
We never killed you in the bed while you was asleep. We never. You never hear black people doing none of these things.
No.
But we are the culprit.
Yes.
In everything. Now, how does that sound?
Well, it sounds like you live in racist ass America. All right.
Wow.
But what are we going to do about it?
That's what Mike's saying.
because you've thrown off the shackles and you debunked the myth. You watch me in Nsoromma. So you've opened your eye. You're awoke. Now what? Now what? See, many of our people are not ready for the responsibility of revolution and nationhood. There will be casualties. Some of us are not going to make it. And you know what? I'm okay with that. Because some of us don't need to. Right? And I'll tell you a person.
As long as it takes me to make our next 6, 7 generations able to not go through this,
right?
I will be frontline all day.
All day.
With all of mine.
That's word.
You know what I'm saying?
And it brings me to this one. I say some of us don't need to make it. Now, I've seen this guy that has become popular on Black Twitter and Black YouTube and this, that, and the other.
Right.
Okay.
White guy walking around?
No, it's a black dude.
Oh, okay.
It's this black dude. And the things he said. See, here's what I learned a long time ago.
What?
Right? Because he's become popular and he said some things that were impressive.
Right.
But if you listen to people long enough, you know, crap always comes out in the wash and they expose themselves for who they really are.
Right.
All right. And I'm talking about this dude, Charleston White. All right. Now, Charleston White had came out and said some things that seemed, yeah, you know, we need to listen. Maybe we need to listen to this brother. So I listened to him. All right.
Right.
And I listened to him right up until he said, well, you know, here's the thing. With the 5 cops, the 5 black cops that killed the black dude, all right?
Right.
All right? Here's the thing. You know, it should be more attention to that, all right? But nah, we got more attention for George Floyd, right? And then he went on to say, because George Floyd was a murderer. George Floyd held a gun to this girl's stomach and was going to kill her. George Floyd did it. He had a whole list of George Floyd's crimes, as if to indicate that George Floyd deserved the fate that he got. And why weren't we as upset about some of these other murders that took place as we were about George Floyd? Let me tell you why. Okay? You handkerchief-head you. All right? Let me tell you why. Because we watched George Floyd's murderer, Derek Chauvin, casually murder him. He had his knee on his neck, strangling him with his hands in his pocket. That was just casual routine. And that should have bothered people. Okay? I don't give a damn what George Floyd's past was. We sat there and we watched this white supremacist murder him on film while other cops stood and held the crowd back while he casually murdered him and got up and walked off as if it was like on a trip to the toilet or something. And you had the audacity to get up there, Mr. Charleston White, and spew white supremacist talking points on that. You can go to hell and you can kiss my ass by the hole. I mean that.
Boo! Yo, my boot was super late, yo.
You know, like I said, there was going to be some couches. It was not easy to put you in shackles. Don't think it was. What makes you think it's going to be easy to remove them? Let me tell you something. Every night, I petition the ancestors for guidance, and every morning, the ancestors charge me to sound the alarm.
That's right.
I know we had the plan because the ancestors gave it to us, and I wrote it down.
And it's in your DNA, my brother.
It's in your DNA. We had the personnel, the funds, the plan. Now all we need is the goddamn nerve.
And the execution.
Marcus Garvey said, never forget that intelligence rules the world and ignorance carries the burden. Therefore, remove yourself as far as possible for ignorance and seek as far as possible to be intelligent. Read a book. It's not illegal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right with me there. No
You hear me?
Yeah.
Because they trying to ban books.
They working on it hard as they can dare.
They trying to only get you shaking and booty shaking on TikTok. So keeping you distracted from all the things that's turning you into a slave. So you gotta pay attention, man.
Pay attention. Destiny determines who enters your life, but you decide who stays. Therefore, value those who value you, and don't treat those as a priority.
Who treat you as an option.
WHGE 95.3 FM, The Open Eye. I'm Patrice Gibbs.
I'm Nsoromma.
Thanks for joining us.
Yaga! Yo, what's good? You know what it is. care at home in Delaware. That's what we doing. Call us if you need some help with, an autistic child or a significant other that need help around the home. Call us. You dig? 302-502-7138. Ask for Tim. Yaga! And it's our time. And I'd like to thank all y'all for tuning in. Hey, yo, Pat, yo.
Hey, like my man Nsoromma said, thank y'all for tuning in. And like I always tell you, the world was a better place when the black man ruled the planet. Global African supremacy. Peace.
Yo, streaming all platforms, you dig? Yaga!
All right.